This is Listen After Watching,
a podcast where we recap and discuss the most mind-bending, twisty, and thought-provoking TV shows and movies out there. I'm Adrian.
and I'm Alicia. Let's dive in.
What's up, party people? Welcome back to Listen After Watching, aka LAW, aka LOL. I'm Adrian. This is
I'm
my
Alicia.
sister. Bam. Oh, guys, we got another great episode here. We're excited to get into.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. This was awesome. All outie, baby.
All outie. That's how I live my life, and I won't stop. How was your week, Leash?
You know, it was the usual. I mean, every day is the same. I said this last week. But it was pretty good. Even though it was uneventful, I have been trying to get 6,000 steps a day, which might sound like nothing to most people. But when you live the life that I live and you sit at a desk all day, every day, 6,000 is like one good long walk per day.
Oh, I'm lucky to get 3,000.
Dude, I know. And it's
I
like
work
shameful.
from home and I'm sitting in this chair all day. So that's impressive.
Yeah. And Luna's been loving it because it means she gets to come with me.
Aw.
My dog, by the way, who's sitting behind me.
We'll post some clips, some of our social clips. She's in the background of Alicia's video right now. She's so cute. That's my niece.
How was your week?
My week was okay, despite Trump taking over everything. And, you know, I did learn something new, that there's only two genders. So that's something.
Oh my gosh.
I learned about myself, that I don't exist. So that was really big for me.
Oh my God. It's been like...
It's a shit show.
It has really been insane. I mean, more and more every day feels like a movie, like a horror movie.
A bad movie that we want to turn off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you know what? The light at the end of the tunnel is Severance Season 2.
Honestly, it really is. And this week we watched the episode together, which was fun.
That was
we had
fun.
A little. So we do this thing. Me and Matt, Adrian and Abby will get together maybe once a month and do something called Family Date Night. FDN.
FDN.
Yeah, and I put it on my calendar as FDN every time. But we had a little FDN dinner. It was delicious.
Mm-hmm.
And then we watched the episode together, which was super fun. Usually it's just me and Matt watching.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really fun to get everyone's reactions in real time.
Yeah, but we tried to not talk too much. We got to save it for this. But there's so much to talk about because it's just far beyond what we see in the episode. There's all sorts of stuff on Reddit that has opened my eyes to details in the episode. So
Same. Yeah, I kind of feel like a dummy. And we don't claim to be, you know, deep diving like some of these people, and we're not like media
Definitely
experts. We're watching for fun and talking about this for fun. So if we sound dumb, it's because we are.
Period. I always say that. So I guess without further ado, let's get into it. This is your perpetual spoiler alert for this podcast. If you haven't caught on, we're talking all about Severance Season 2, Episode 2, called Goodbye, Mrs. Selvig. So if you haven't watched it yet, stop! Pause the podcast, go to Apple TV Plus, watch it, and come back. Make sure that step is really crucial. Make sure you come back and listen to this.
Yeah, please come back, all of our 3 friends that are listening. But let's get into it. To kick things off, I want to get your one word for the episode. Wait, should we say ours at the same time?
It's going to cut out probably.
Oh, okay. You go first.
I will say reveal. There was a lot that was revealed.
That's true. Okay, I went a different direction. Mine is Kobelvik. I really
Oh,
thought
really
I
good.
really thought that was gonna be yours.
No,
Damn
I
it.
we switched roles this time because mine was silly last time and yours is
Yeah.
silly this time.
Ugh, such a good one. Okay, let's get
Well,
into
we're
the
gonna
episode.
beat by beat. Here we go. So we open on Audi Mark coming to at Devin and Rickon's house right after his innie has screamed, "She's alive." Mark is disoriented and he discovers he's holding a picture of him and Gemma.
Ooh. Okay, so
What
I
did
was
you
so
think?
excited because this is what we wanted to see is everyone's reaction after the innies dropping that bomb,
Mhm.
especially Mark.
Mhm.
I was first of all, I was so happy to see that Devin is such a real one and is, like, so plugged into Mark and is, like, so just the best sister, the best sibling
Yeah,
that he could have.
I know. She goes up to him and like gives him a hug and she's like, "Is this you now?" And I think probably before she said that, he was like not understanding what was happening. But when
Right.
she said that, I'm sure it clicked in for him like, "Oh, my innie must have been here."
Yeah, I was wondering that too. Did he immediately go to that thought, or did he think, like, he was having a medical emergency or what?
That's what I would think, you know?
Right, me too. I would be like, "W Did I have a seizure? What happened?"
Right. Yeah,
And
yeah.
he really doesn't give us a lot in that. He's just very quiet and just kind of, like, trying to figure out in his head what's going on.
Mhm.
So then we're back at Lumen, and it's after the gala event, and Helena is confronted by her father, James Egan, who calls her a fetid muppet. I thought that was pretty good.
Naturally. That was good.
We also see Dylan walking out of the Lumen lobby with an ice pack on his head while Milchick watches from above.
Ooh. Yeah, so Jaime Egan, the
Jamie is not
the
happy.
crypt keeper that he is, I mean, he walks in, he stares Helena down, and I thought he was gonna slap her. Like, maybe my head is messed up for thinking that he's gonna, like, physically assault her, but then I was like, "You know what? That's not really their game. They're all psychological." So he calls
True.
her a fetid moppet, which I also had to look up. I was like I mean, obviously, I know fetid connotation bad.
Yeah.
Moppet, usually like a term of
Dirty.
endearment or
Mm,
something similar, but yeah, if you want to think of it like a rotten child, smelly
mm.
child, some people
Yeah.
have translated it too.
Yeah, and, just the fact that he's coming out with, like, 1800s lingo, it's so
Uh,
on brand for him.
it really
Such a
is.
weird can
They
you imagine having him as a dad? Like,
no,
there was no love in that house. Just
absolutely
being called a
none.
moppet. What does that even mean? Anyway, yeah, that
Ugh,
was strange. That was his way of saying, "You fucked up, kid."
yeah, yeah, and I wonder, like, I don't know. I wonder if he was saying that to Helena. I guess he was, or if he was, like, talking about her innie.
True. I don't know. Yeah, I was thinking about that too because why would he be mad at Helena? I think he's just mad in general that it happened and he's gonna take it out on whoever is there, so
Yeah, for sure. Alright, so then Helena tasks Milchick with doing damage control. When he asks if he should fire the MDR team, she tells him to let Kier guide his hand. Then, accompanied by Security Chief Mr. Drummond, new character drop, Helena
mhm.
meets with Cobell. Helena apologizes for treating her poorly and offers her a promotion to the Severance Advisory Council as a reward for her loyalty. But Cobell is insulted that she wasn't offered her old job back.
I love this part. I love
Me
when,
too.
Miss Cobell she pauses and then she says, "I never heard of that before."
I know we were laughing when we were watching it together because it was just, I don't know, it was just such a funny thing to say. But Yeah, they're obviously telling us, like, Helena made this job up.
Yeah, and Cobell is not fooled by that and wants to get her hands dirty. She wants to be involved. Obviously, she's so deeply
Mhm.
involved that she's pretending to be a lactation nurse.
I know. Yeah, and it was really interesting to see Helena, um, speak. I mean, I think this is, like these are the first scenes that we're seeing Helena as her Audi speak, and she's so composed, and she's surprisingly not angry or anything, about the situation, so
Yeah,
it's
she's really
it's kind
even
of
keel.
creepy.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so Cobell basically doesn't give an answer whether or not she's gonna take this fake made up position. She says she's gonna think about it, so
Mhm.
TBD on that. The next thing we see is Milchick has got some style. He rides off on his motorcycle to go do damage control with the team. So
Hot.
first he goes to see first he goes to see Irving, and Irving pretty much lies to Milchick, doesn't give him any information about his whereabouts that night, says he's just watching TV. And then Milchick goes to see Dylan and tells him that his innie was involved in a physical altercation with another employee. Milchick then tells Irving and Dylan that they are both fired from Lumen. Dun dun dun.
Yes. Yeah, it was interesting to see, obviously, Milchek on his motorcycle. You know, we saw a little bit of the little white shirt return because obviously it was coming right off of the end of,
Oh,
season 1
yeah.
finale.
You got your wish.
I got my wish there and then some. I got Leather Daddy Milchek, which thank God for that. I mean, what a
That was
wonderful
good.
reward.
It honestly makes a lot of sense. I can't see him in a car.
No, I think it would make him like, if he was in one of those sad little cars that's all around the town that they're in, I'd be like, "Lame loser," but it would be kind of sad, like, it would be sad to see him
Yeah,
I don't know, you just imagine, like, what his life is like, but he seems to be cool, I don't know how else to say it.
it's a cool cat.
He is cool.
Uh, Also cool, Audi Irving.
Yeah.
He is not giving anything. So obviously, his Audi would know that something happened. Like he
Mhm.
just blacked out for some amount of time. And then when Milchick shows up, well, there you go. Something happened with the
Exactly.
any Audi situation. But he really gives him nothing. Says he's been watching TV. He says, "If
Mhm.
I broke, did I break something? I can pay for it."
Yeah, and
So
he
he's
says,
acting.
he's like, "What did I eat down there?"
Yeah, that was really cute. Oh
I
no,
know.
what did I eat down there?
Yeah, it's interesting what you bring up because obviously Irving knows something happens because he woke up suddenly at Bert's door, but Dylan really has no clue outside of like the injury obviously to his head with the
True.
ice pack. He's probably very confused and I'm sure he was given some excuse as to why he was there late like this isn't the first time someone's gotten a waffle party obviously, so maybe they told Lumen is lying, so who knows what they told him, but he's probably the most blindsided by it.
Yeah, true. And I think he's the one we end up feeling the most sympathy for also for
Mhm.
his Audi losing his job.
Yeah.
But did it look like Irving had eyeliner on to you?
Yeah, I saw other people point this out too, and, I mean, he is kind of like alt punk. He's
Yeah,
giving that.
alt punk guy, but he still talks the same.
Yeah, and he was still, like, seemingly cheerful, you know, in
Uh-huh.
his
Yeah, he
conversation with
wasn't
Milchick.
like yeah, he wasn't totally different, but definitely more
Mhm.
of a cool guy.
Mhm. We got a lot of cool cats in this team, I'm
Everyone's
telling
cool on
you.
this show. Damn, Rickon.
Not Rickon. Oh my
Okay.
gosh. Well, while Milchek is doing his damage control, Helena is filming an apology video and she passes off her outburst at the gala as the result of mixing alcohol with a non lumen medication for an arm rash. She ends the video by saying, I am committed to this company with every part of me, but I'm also just a human, just like my innie and just like you. Ooh.
Mm. So we knew this was gonna happen, right? Lumen's not new to damage control, I'm sure. So they jump on it, as I'm sure they have for many other things in the past. The excuse is hilarious. Mixing alcohol with non-lumen medication for an arm rash, like the specificity of arm rash. I wanted to see the rash, like prove it.
You have to imagine too, arm rash medication is probably like so free of side effects. Like it's probably like it would be like an antihistamine, like drinking on an antihistamine. Come on, like what's gonna
It
happen?
made me lose my mind.
Right.
Um, so we also learn, I guess, that Lumen makes medications.
Yeah,
That's
I've seen other people online talk about how Lumen is like kind of a medical tech company. So
mhm.
which makes sense with the brain surgery of it all, but,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we're getting some confirmation that if they're not in the medical field, they at least control what people within the company take or the doctors they see and all of that.
Yeah. I think I just kind of think of Lumen as like one of those huge, giant conglomerates that has a hand
Mhm,
in everything. So the fact that they
mhm.
make medications is not surprising, I suppose.
Yeah, totally.
But the way she ends the video with that line, I'm just human, just like my innie, just like you. What'd you think about that?
Well, I was wondering who she might be talking to, if this is, like, internal for Lumen or, the people who were at the gala. Or what? Like, how far reaching was her outburst? Like, how many people maybe saw it? But also, what a stark contrast to her telling her innie that she is not a person.
Right. True.
She is like it makes me wonder what she really believes. I mean, obviously, she's putting on a face for this video that she's recording in this episode, but I wonder if she was doing the same for the video she recorded for her innie, just to kind of put her in her place a little bit.
Yeah, I think this is one of the big questions of the show at this point is what does Helena really believe deep down? Like, if it weren't
Mhm.
for trying to please her dad and the company, what would she really think?
Yep. Well, believe it or not, this was the cold open of the episode, and then it cut to black. Here, roll in the opening credits scene. So
I
this
was
was crazy.
shocked.
I know, we were
I was
watching
like, we
together
just
like,
watched half the
"Whoa."
episode.
So, we get a new opening credits scene, very exciting, just as trippy as the first season, but definitely check it out. If you skip past it, make sure you watch it the next time, uh, you watch.
Yeah. I thought it was very cool. There's a lot of details that people on Reddit were like trying to pick apart, tiny little flashes of seeing someone here or there. But we'll
Right.
talk about it. One of the main things that we noticed from the opening credits a little bit later.
Mhm.
But after the opening credits, we are back at Devin and Rickon's house, and Mark's trying to make sense of what happened. And he says he was referencing the baby when he screamed, "She's alive." But Devin, we can tell, is not convinced totally.
Mhm.
So they're kind of discussing this, and then they get a knock on the door, and it's Milchick who
Mm.
explains to the group what happened, that the innies got out, and he tries to convince Mark to return to work, saying he'd hate to reward his innie's courage with non-existence.
This is very interesting, this whole scene. So there's
Mhm.
obviously a lot of tension between Devin and Mark because Devin was able to experience the entire scene from Innie to Audi and heard everything as Innie had to say. And Mark, I think, is just, and we see this later in the episode too, is just kind of like resistant to the idea that his innie thinks his dead wife is still alive somehow.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, he's been grieving his wife for what, a couple years now, and it's obviously
Hmm.
still weighs very heavily on him. So to even entertain for a moment that she might be alive is such a huge thing. So it makes total sense that
Yeah.
he's like, no, no way. Like, I don't accept that. But Devin
Yes.
is surprisingly pretty pretty convinced, it seems, that there's something to it.
Yeah. And I think Devin is obviously skeptical of Lumen from the beginning. Like, she,
Hmm.
I don't think, is a fan of the fact that Mark severed himself. We see this in season one, in conversations they had. But she's like not been cool with him working there and sees them for the evil that they seem to be.
Hmm.
um, and so, of course, she's like, I'm going to believe what your innie is saying. And I think they are capable of something so evil as keeping your wife alive and not telling you.
Yeah. And thank God that we saw this from her, because that was one of our questions last episode is, is anyone going to believe what Mark's innie said, especially Devin?
Mhm.
And another thing she does is when Milchick comes in, she covers the photo of Mark and Gemma
Mhm.
with a towel, which I think
Oh
is
my
really
gosh.
smart.
She's a real one.
She
Um,
is.
Devin has a lot of great moments in this scene. Another one being when Milchick is talking with them and she's like, "Is it normal for one of your employees to commit lactation fraud?" Which lactation fraud is a new terminology for
Oh,
me.
that should have been my word.
So
uh,
good.
Rickon has obviously my line from the show.
Mhm.
Go
Belvic.
Belvic. Go Belvic. Maybe be a helpful nomenclature here.
Rickon is, like, only concerned with his book event, and
Of
he's
course.
like he's like, "I guess we can reschedule," and, he's just talking about, like, the logistics of having another reading. So
Yeah, he
funny.
doesn't care that a historic event has just taken place in the home.
And he calls Mark's any his workie.
His worky, yeah. He also has a line that I really loved when Rebecca.
God damn it,
Wait, first
Rebecca.
of all, yeah. First of all, when Rebecca leaves and is like, "Don't blame the baby. It's not its fault." Like even Rickon thinks Rebecca is weird.
I know, that's so funny to me.
It's just tiers of weirdos here.
I know it. Yeah.
Uh,
I guess the meat of this conversation is that Milchick tells them everything that happened, like, truly tells the truth. Like, here, your innies found a way to access overtime contingency. He tells them the terminology and all. And um, it's just such a contrast from not telling anything to the other team members, like how dispensable they are compared to Mark. And obviously,
that's
he's begging basically Mark to come back to work.
Mhm. That's true. Yeah, and this was something we noticed last episode too, or a question that we had, like, why is Mark so valuable to them? And we can see
Mhm.
just in the way that Mark is treated in this episode that he is truly invaluable to them. One
Mhm.
thing in this scene that I thought was really creepy is when Milchick puts his helmet on the table while they're speaking, and I'm wondering if he has like a recording device in there.
Mm? I don't know, I would not put it past him or Lumen.
Right. Just to, like, get proof of what Mark knew, like, Audi Mark knew from the situation.
Right, and they obviously do not divulge anything to Milchick about the fact that his innie knows that Miss Casey/Gemma is alive.
Yeah.
So they don't give
Like,
Milchick
gold.
anything.
Buy milkshake.
Well, we have a short scene after this, but one that I think is worth talking about. Helena is at Lumen watching footage of her innie leaving to go up the elevator. So the moment where they are hatching their plan and Helena's innie is going up, and the next time that she'll be awake is at the gala. But she watches her at the elevator door with Mark, and she watches her kissing Mark, and she rewinds it and
Mhm.
she watches it a second
She watches it
time.
over and over, you little creep.
What did you think of this?
I I think this is where we start to see how lonely Helena really is
Mhm.
and how she is feeling envious of her innie and like really seeing that, oh my god, my innie's living life more than I am out here
Mhm.
rich, like with
Mhm.
supposedly everything in the world that anyone would ever want. And
Yeah.
like, why am I watching my innie kiss this guy and like kind of wishing for that?
I know. This was intriguing for sure. Like I agree. I think she's totally envious not only of like the closeness. Obviously she's envious of that cuz she wants to watch the kiss. She wants to watch this very intimate moment. She probably can't believe that it's her body that did that. And
Yeah.
she also is probably envious of the fact that like her innie is rebellious and ambitious and opinionated and
Yeah.
funny. Like she was joking with Mark too at the elevator. So like all of these things that she probably cannot be, or at least has been beaten down so much to not be,
Mhm.
is very interesting,
'Cause she's a fetid moppet.
as we know.
She's not allowed to be those things.
Oh, I feel bad for her.
I know, yeah, we start to feel some sympathy for the Helena character despite her being a real bitch. Um, but another interesting scene, so we see Dylan after he's fired out on the job hunt. He goes to a company called Great Doors, and has a really interesting interview scene with a guy who could be his twin, basically. But in the end, is discriminated against for being a severed employee.
Mhm. What a great comedy scene between these two.
I know.
Oh my gosh. So, yeah, he has to kind of, like, feign interest in doors in this interview. This guy that is interviewing him is obviously, like, horny for doors. I don't know how else to
Yeah.
explain it, but
Who
so he
isn't?
asks him, like, Dylan says something like, "I've always been interested in doors since I was a kid," and he's
When did
like,
it start?
"How old?" If you were a door, what kind of door would you be? Which what a
Pocket.
telling response this is.
Mhm.
A pocket door.
It's really the only severed door there is.
That's true, yeah. Yeah, you're doing your door thing, and when you're not needed, you can tuck yourself away.
Wow.
Oh,
Damn, the writing.
that's
Ugh.
profound. And then he asks him, he says, I think he says, like, "Flat or eggshell?" Like the paint. And Dylan goes, "Semi-gloss." And he's like, "That's hot." I love that part so much. He says, "That's hot."
I know, what a freaking weirdo. I feel like that's where, any Dylan's, like, funniness kind of comes out a little bit when he's like,
Yeah.
"Semi-gloss."
For sure, because otherwise he seems, like, miserable.
Yeah, he's obviously the weight of providing for his family is weighing heavy on him, and we see that in
Mhm,
the call with his wife that happens afterwards, which is he's, like, obviously very defeated and kind of is short with his wife, and
mhm.
it's not a good time for Audi Dylan.
No, not at all. And we see more of the way that society, or at least this one person, feels about severed people, and,
Mhm.
it seems like there's very little empathy for people who go through the procedure.
Yeah, which really doesn't make a lot of sense to me because it's not like they would be severed working for you, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's
I guess
true.
it's
I
just
mean,
like a morals thing, like, "Oh, if
right.
you would ever do this, then" like,
Mhm.
"Oh, if you had an abortion, then you're not gonna work here," or something like that.
Right, yeah. Yeah, which is interesting that, like, Dylan disclosed it in the first place because he must know that there's some
I
ill feeling
know.
towards it.
I was like, "Don't say it, Dylan, you almost had him.
I
Join the
know, he
kickball
did.
team." God damn it.
What a fun scene. Then we go on to a more serious, somber scene. Mark meets with his sister Devon at Pip's. So, return of Pip's.
Ooh,
Um,
ooh.
they have a pretty heated conversation, and he says to her that he is deciding to quit, much to the dismay of Devon, who is really concerned that Gemma may actually still be alive.
Yeah, Devon's really pushing for this idea that Gemma might be alive, and I feel really sad for Devon here because it sounds like she was close to Gemma, and they had, like, a
Mhm,
great relationship, like, the 3 of them at least, and she says she was affected by her death too, and Mark
mhm,
really is just, like, not having that, and he's still in so much pain from this, and he talks about having to tell her parents that she died and having to tell her students and smelling her on his sheets for weeks. And so he
mhm.
really resents that Devin is saying that it affected her somehow too, which of course it did. Like if he's
Right.
thinking rationally, but I think he's just too hurt to, like I said, accept this new idea that she could be in some way alive still.
Yeah, there's obviously, like, a a disconnect on both ends, like a lack of understanding of what the other person is thinking and feeling. So we can have empathy for both of them, right? Like Devin is really wants to help her brother and really believes in getting down to the truth. But she might not be considering how devastating it would be for him to accept that his wife may still be alive, or at least a form of her. And then we feel bad for Devin because Mark is just like lashing out at her, and
Hmm.
even says, like, if Rickon died and his body burned, I would be sad for you, but I wouldn't be affected by it. And it's like, whoa, you're kind of crossing a line here, like bringing
Yeah.
Rickon into the conversation.
Yeah, he gets a little hurtful there, which of course he and Rickon aren't that close, so I'm sure he wouldn't be affected.
That's true. I think he
But we
thinks Rickon
have
is an idiot.
to we have to remember too, like Devin Devin's been through a lot with this whole Mark being a severed employee thing. Like she just went through lactation fraud with her first brand new
Absolutely.
baby. This creepy weirdo who kind of stole the baby, or we thought.
Right.
So it's not like she's been totally unaffected by what's happened here. It's come into her life in a serious way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. They don't really talk about Cobell at all. They're just all focused on Gemma and if Mark's going back to work.
Mhm. Yeah, but I think Devin's seeing, like, how sinister this whole thing could possibly be.
Definitely.
And also in this scene, as Mark's leaving the diner, we see that Mr. Drummond, Helly's security guy with the really cool hair, is listening in.
Yeah, yeah. So, I
So,
mean,
they definitely know that that information is out there about Gemma.
right. Yeah. Pips is not a safe place to have this type of conversation. I mean,
We're living in Lumen City, like, that nowhere is safe.
I know. And what an unassuming giant man to be sitting near you. Of course, you wouldn't
I know.
suspect anything.
Yeah, not at all. I did love his hand tattoo. It says frolic.
Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh. It's like it just shows the lengths that these people go to, like how entrenched they are in their beliefs. It's crazy.
That's yeah, such a funny word to have tattooed. I wonder if any fans are gonna get that tattoo.
Oh my god, it's probably
I
already
would get
happened.
it. Would you?
Maybe.
New tattoo
Sibling
idea?
tattoo.
Alright, stay tuned. Check our Instagram, Twitter. Wait, not Twitter.
Twitter's canceled.
The other, government-owned app, TikTok.
Mhm. Exactly.
Alright, so ooh, one of the best scenes I think of the episode and one of the most puzzling scenes that we'll talk about more is when we see Irving go into a phone booth and he places this cryptic call. He leaves a voicemail to an unknown person saying, "I want you to know my innie got the message." And then we also
Mhm.
see in that scene Bert watching him from his car secretly. Irving doesn't see this. So
Oops.
this is oh my god, this is a crazy, puzzling, confusing scene. What did you think? Who did you think he was talking to?
Well, we did talk about this after we watched it together briefly. And I believe your theory that it's Petey. I don't know if you still
Mhm.
believe this, but it does make sense that Petey, after being reintegrated, probably tried to reach out to everybody that he worked with. And so it makes sense that Irving was someone that he probably tried to get in touch with, and Irving, like, kind of brushed him aside. But now Irving is seeing that there's some validity to what Petey was maybe trying to express to him.
Yeah, that was my first thought that it was Petey and that it would make sense that, he doesn't pick up the call. Petey's no longer
Right.
with us. I did see something on Reddit that made a good point that Petey's death was very public, so and because Irving's been collecting all this information about Lumen, we would think he would know that,
Mm.
but, maybe he didn't believe it or who knows? It also could be that he was calling Bert?
Yeah, I saw a couple people online say that too. I don't know if I believe that. It seems unlikely, but who knows? And I'm just happy that this storyline is continuing at all, that we're seeing Bert and Irving, and there's more to it than just, you know, he knocks on his door. Bert's probably like, "Who the hell are you?" and sends him away. Bert is either intrigued by this person who came to his door, or he knew Irving as his
Mhm.
outie, and there's more to the story that we don't know yet.
Yeah, a lot of folks are speculating that they maybe had a relationship outside of Lumen that kind of
Mhm.
bled into their innies, so that's gonna be an interesting one to figure out. I guess
Mhm.
the last person I was thinking he could be talking to is, of course, Ragabi, who is the surgeon who
Mm.
is working on the reintegration,
That's
for
right.
PD.
Mm. Yep,
So,
yep.
those are my guesses. We'll see.
All good.
But
All
I
good
think
ones.
Bert watching in the car was the most interesting part of that scene for me.
I know I wasn't sure if we would see him again, but, yeah, I'm excited to see where that goes. Well, then we see Milchick visit Mark again at his house, and he convinces him to return by offering him a hefty pay raise of 20% and promises that the happiness his innie receives will trickle back to him. He also tells him that his innie has found love. And in the end,
Mhm.
Mark does end up going back to Lumen.
Yeah. So again, we're seeing just how valuable Mark is to Lumen.
Mhm.
20% raise is funny. They probably would pay him $1,000,000 to get him back
I know, I know.
if
You're
only
not
Mark
asking for
knew.
enough. Yeah, right. I
I
know.
think it's interesting that he also tells him that he's found love
Yeah, I
because that
know.
just raises more questions for Mark potentially. Because of course Mark's like, "With who? My
Right, and
wife?"
you would think this would be yeah, maybe that is his first thought. Like maybe I've found love with Miss Casey down there, or
I think that would
it,
be my first thought if I thought maybe that my dead wife was in there, you know?
yeah, totally. Yeah, it is interesting. It would also like if I were in his shoes, I would also be thinking like, "Oh, what that's really strange. Like what if I developed a relationship outside and my innie had this whole other relationship with someone else?" Like that's
They
disturbing.
better be doing STD testing in that elevator is all I gotta say.
It's part of the scan for, the code detector. It's also an STD detector.
That's
But,
what they're working on at Lumen.
Milchick, this was such a funny, visual. Milchick, like, Mark opens the door for him, and he's standing there with this fruit basket with a giant pineapple.
I know. They fucking love fruit at Lumen.
Ugh, what's not to love?
Okay,
Fruit
also,
hater.
someone on Reddit had a really good point. How is he carrying these fruit baskets on his motorcycle?
Sidecar?
My fruit sidecar.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Hmm.
This show's unbelievable to me now. I can't
Plot
engage.
holes. We need to call Ben Stiller and ask him what was going on.
I know, these are the hard-hitting questions.
Ugh. But,
Uh,
yeah, very interesting. I think that Mark is probably, based on this conversation, probably is clinging to some hope of happiness trickling to him, like Milchick says, even though that's gotta be bullshit. Like, there's no how would that happen?
yeah, I don't know, because the whole premise of this is there's no leakage back and forth, so why are they now saying that the happiness is going to trickle down to you?
It's manipulation.
Yeah, but I agree. I think Mark is still in such deep depression and mourning that he's still hanging on to some hope of something better through
Mhm.
this. Well, we get a picture into what Lumen is thinking more when we see Helena talking to her inner circle. And she says that Mark must return to work to finish the Cold Harbor file. Dum dum
Mm.
dum. So after hearing Mark's plea to the board, who's listening 24/7 to that little box, Milchick goes to rehire Dylan and Irving with more fruit baskets. And the board decides also they're going to send Helly R back. So one by one, we see each MDR member prepare to go to work and go down the elevator again.
Ooh. This was very interesting to see Helena's inner circle,
Mm-hmm.
which is what I dubbed it when I wrote these notes. But it is Milchick, Mr. Drummond, the big security dude,
Mm-hmm.
and
With cool hair.
Natalie, who is the woman with the board on her ear in some scenes in season
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, it's interesting that Helena is making these calls because
Right.
I just imagined maybe it was like her dad and a bunch of dudes that we haven't seen making these decisions. But
Hmm.
she seems to be very involved.
Yeah, and I
Um,
saw someone online was talking about that too. They were saying it seems like the chain of command is really strong, and they obviously, the further you go down from the board to James Egan to Helena Egan to Milchick, it's like Helena tells Milchick to let Kier guide his hand. She's like, I
mhm.
don't need to know the details of how you're handling this and like doing damage control. Do it however you see fit. And then it seems like the same with, James is obviously invested in what happens with Mark, but he doesn't need to know all the details of how Helena's going to get him back.
Yeah, suspiciously trusting of
Yeah,
one
it's very
another,
strange.
at least in this situation. But here it is confirmed that this Cold Harbor file is what is really valuable to them right now and what they need Mark to finish. And as we know
Mhm.
from last episode, the Cold Harbor file is somehow connected to Gemma slash Miss Casey.
Right. I'm wondering, so they've been working on different files like since Mark started working at MDR.
Mhm.
They talk about the different we see them in season 1, the different file names and what everyone's working on. And I'm like, how many files has he done? They probably all pertain to Gemma in some capacity. And is this like the final one they need? It seems like it is.
Right. Yeah, how many times does he have to do the Gemma file?
Right.
To get and how do they know that this is, like, the final one? Is he doing, like, parts of her brain or her personality? How is
Mm.
this working?
Yeah, it could
We don't
be.
know. And in that case, what are the other people working on? Is that just for show, to make sure he's in there doing it, you
They're
know?
playing Minesweeper. For all intents and purposes, they're just playing little games.
But then why is Gemma so important to them? This must be like a pilot program, and this is the first time it's ever been done.
Yeah, possibly. So during this part, this is where we also learn that it hasn't been 5 months since the OTC incident, like Milchick told the innies.
Yeah. Right. It's only been a few days. It's like he scrambled to get the 3 people, and then Mark is in for, like, what, 2.5 days or a day and a half or something?
Mhm.
And then he goes back crawling to Irving and Dylan.
There
So,
we
I
have
don't
it.
know why he lied. I think he just came up with the story of you've become famous and what you're doing is important, and so
Yeah,
he had to give that a bigger timeline maybe?
maybe so, and I think he also does it I think he does it as a manipulation tactic, like, you are maybe sad about the time lost, like, you didn't even realize that this much time had been lost.
And also, you're not that important. Like, this isn't that
Right.
urgent what we're doing, and it's not like we need you to finish Cold Harbor yesterday.
That's true, that's a really good point, like, we didn't take immediate action because whatever.
Right. Yeah.
There is a really interesting thing that a few people I've seen online point out. The scene when they're going down the elevator one by one. You might have seen this too, but it's one continuous shot, quote unquote. There's probably some editing in between, but it's showing us as if it's one continuous shot. Mark goes down, then Dylan, then Irving, and then
Mhm.
Helena. And they clip together the scene from episode 1 when they're coming out of the elevator one by one, and they intentionally timed those up exactly the same. So when we see them going to their locker, putting their stuff in, getting their other badge, and going down the elevator, it lines up perfectly with the first episode
Oh,
when they're
wow.
coming out. Yeah, it's super cool the way that they did that.
I love all the details of the show. It's what makes it so good.
I know. It's awesome. And now we've reached the final scene of the episode. Mark coming home from work, he runs into Cobell coming out of her
Mm.
house, and he's demanding answers from her, asking her who she is, asking questions about what this is all about. He ends up blocking her car in the road, and he asks the question that's on everyone's mind. Do you know something about Gemma? And
Mm.
Cobell takes a suspiciously long pause. And finally, she screams, she honks to get him out of the way, and she just speeds off. Whoa.
Oh my god. So, obviously, she doesn't know anything.
Obviously not. Forget that.
I mean, if you're Mark, you're like, "Okay, she definitely knows that's like 100% confirmation."
I know. I know. Yeah, when we were watching together, it was so funny. It's like as soon as she didn't answer within like one Mississippi, it's like, ugh.
Basically answered 100%. Uh, so now, yeah, we're going into the next episode knowing that Mark has confirmation that something freaky is going on with the Gemma situation.
Oh,
How's he
yeah,
gonna deal with that?
yeah, there's no question anymore. He knows what he needs to know. He knows that he needs to get to the bottom of it at any rate.
So now that he has some confirmation, hopefully him and Devin are teaming up,
Yes.
sibling powerhouse, and gonna take on Lumen.
Dude, yes. And you know what? Even though Cobell seems to have moved out as Mark's neighbor, surely not the last we will see of her.
Oh, no, no, no. It ain't goodbye, Mrs. Selvig, that's
See
for
you
sure.
later.
Well, it might be goodbye, Mrs. Selvig, but it's not gonna be goodbye, Miss Cobell. We know that.
Yeah, definitely not.
Ooh, such a good episode. I love that we got our innie episode and our outie episode. That was such a
Very
great touch.
satisfying. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, let's get into some Reddit theories. So
Ledoux.
we looked up the Severance Reddit, and we have given some credit. If you want to read these people's posts, you can look them up in the Severance subreddit. But starting with something uh, interesting throughout the episode, the pineapples. So the
Mhm.
symbolism of pineapples, user Papillon Effect says that pineapples can grow from the crown without the fruiting body. Like they don't need the full plant to propagate, just that one top
Mm.
part. And it kind of
Mhm.
feels like a parallel to how Lumen might be creating copies or reconstructing people. Very interesting and not a coincidence,
Mm.
I'm sure, that they picked pineapples. Um, and then within that thread, Burrito67 added, this lines up with the painting of Kier pardoning his betrayers. It showed four people with just their upper torso and head sticking out of the ground.
Ooh. Great point, Burrito 67.
I feel
No,
like
I think
there's
this is
not a
a
coincidence.
no, it's not a coincidence. I think they're definitely using some symbolism here. And even Mrs. Selvig says to Mark, you're going back to work, aren't you? Was there a pineapple involved?" So even she knows that, like, they're up to their fruit bullshit out here.
Mhm. Yep.
But I thought that was an interesting call out. I like that.
Mhm.
Well, we also got some theories about some more body swapping. AJ Martin 527 says, "Okay, hear me out. What if James Egan is going to take Helena's body when he quote unquote revolves? So she plants her consciousness in Gemma slash Miss Casey's otherwise shell of a body to be with Mark."
Mm. Yeah, this is layered because we
Mm-hmm.
according to this theory, I mean, James Egan is maybe trying to live on using Helena's body, which, like, if you're Helena and do you know this? Or, like, if you do know this, why are you
Right.
sticking around?
True. Yeah, I don't know if all of this theory is correct, but I think there are some themes that are correct and that we'll
Mm,
talk about more, like the body swapping
mhm.
slash trying to live on.
Yeah.
I don't know if Helena is thinking about being with Mark in that like that dedicated to being with Mark yet, just from like her watching the clips. I think she's more in love with this idea of living a full life than with Mark himself.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Well, we also get potentially another clue or answer, we don't know, to the is it Helly or is it Helena down there
Mhm.
on the severed floor. So we see the shot of each member of MDR going down the elevator in this episode. And as a few people have pointed out, the elevator dings once when the door opens, and then it dings again as they're going down the elevator. But when
Mhm.
Helly goes down, the elevator does not ding the second time. And people are suspecting that this means her chip is not activated, or uh, maybe it was taken out or something, but
Or
basically
yeah.
they're saying this is Helena.
Yeah. So they're doubling down and giving us more hints that it might not be Helly R down there. I think with the Helena romanticizing the any life scene, plus this,
Mhm.
and then Helena, when she's going down the elevator, you can see she's, like, freaked out. She's, like, dreading what's gonna
Mm.
happen next and just, like, not at peace or calm with about what's about to happen at all,
Mhm.
which could apply to either scenario, I guess, but I think she would be more freaked out knowing that she's gonna have to go down there and act her ass off,
Mhm.
becoming Helly R as Helena.
Right. And even though she tells potentially a terrible lie about what happened when she woke up as her innie, she seems to be a pretty good actress from, the videos that she, recorded and her conversation with Cobell, which she probably does not have that much respect for Cobell. I don't know. I'm just
Yeah, that's a
making a
great
guess.
point. Yeah, we've seen her multiple times just, like, be able to put it on in front of a camera, so why not in front of these people?
Yeah, I
Mm,
don't know.
damn.
The plot thickens.
The plot thickens indeed, you muppet. Alright, so in terms of Irving's mysterious call, we have a theory here. MW the Cool says, I think the quote unquote message was the painting. And Audi Irving knows that any Irving saw those paintings and got the message and is now ready to do something with it. So
Mm.
this was an interesting one. We don't know why Irving's Audi is painting the elevator scene over and over and over. To me, it seems like because he's can't stop painting it over and over and over, it's like leached into his from his subconscious to his conscious and he just can't get over
Mhm.
it. He can't get past it. And it's just like on his mind constantly. What
Mhm.
do you think?
I don't know. I Where I get stuck on this theory is who is he calling? Like
Yeah,
who
that too.
is he calling, like, his innie's voicemail box or something? Like, who is he telling, like, "Got the message"? I don't know. Um,
I agree.
but yeah, it's I think that's where I get tripped up with this theory.
Mhm.
Well, here's another far-fetched one. Um, so speaking of Irving, we see from Irving going down the elevator that he's wearing an analog watch. And user Umgar on Reddit has a theory that his innie and his outie are communicating with each other via his wristwatch. Now, we know that in season one, Irving has ties to the Navy, it seems like. And so they are putting forth the theory that his innie and outie could be setting his watch hands to different semaphore patterns, which is like flag
Mm.
signaling. And
Mhm.
in semaphore, there's lots of different signals, but there's also different positions for each letter of the alphabet. So
Hmm.
it could be that they're trying to send a very slow message to each other by setting the watch, one way as the innie so that the outie can see it and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, Lumen Irving's worked there a long time, so the message it could be paragraphs, could be books.
It could be,
Um,
but I'm also like, why would his innie know semaphore?
yeah, that's true. I also think that if this were a thing, us as the viewer would have gotten a little more of a hint about it. Even just a shot of a watch, you know?
I know. Well, another thing that this user says in their very, very long post, which you can go read, is that Ben Stiller in some interview said, like, I'm surprised more people aren't paying attention to what any Audi switch at the locker, like what items they are wearing and what items they're putting away.
Hmm.
So I think that's where this theory was born.
Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if that comes out. Yeah, I just don't know if they're not letting us in on it yet, the show.
Mm-mm.
It's been very, very subtle, if so.
Mhm.
Well, the final theory we're going to talk about on this episode is maybe the biggest theory out there right now that kind of ties together all of these pieces and answers the question, what is Lumen up to? And that
Mhm.
is that Lumen is somehow attempting to resurrect or bring back Kier. You
Ooh,
know
this
him, you love him, you've seen his
well
perpetuity wing. So the theory is that they may have some piece of cure and they're using MDR to help them practice cloning or regrowing humans. So in that case, Mark's work on Gemma may be the closest they've ever gotten.
Mhm.
And something that backs this up in our new opening credits at the very end, we see a baby Kier crawling across the floor.
Mhm. This is this is the theory I believe the most in, but I'm not entirely sure how the Gemma Mark connection fits into it. I just know that whatever they're doing, I believe, is a pattern for how they intend to bring Kier back.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also this makes the most sense. They're so in love with Kier and just weird about him in a cultish way, as we know. So why wouldn't they try to bring this guy back that they think is some kind of magical deity guy?
Yeah, I think it's very also we see this in like religion and cults. This idea of
Mhm.
like your God coming back, like the second coming or like a resurrection or preservation of this person who is so dear to your belief. And I think it makes so much sense that that's their ultimate goal.
Totally. Totally. In which case, the whole severance of it all is really not that critical to what they're doing. I think it's just a way to do it in secret.
Mhm. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's interesting that like a byproduct of this is the severance procedure.
The whole premise of the show.
Yeah, and they're doing
Yeah.
it all over the world. Like we know this from
Mhm.
the small scene where Helly's talking to her inner circle, and they're talking about the other team members that they're trying to bring in that they hope have chemistry with Mark, and like one's from overseas, and the other two are from this company or whatever called 5X, like maybe
Mhm.
some place where everyone was laid off, it was shut down or something. We don't know, but yeah, there are lots of severed people all over the place.
Yeah, we haven't talked about this yet, but last episode and this episode, we get more of a look into just how prevalent this is and how far spread Lumen is. I mean,
Mhm.
Mark W. broke a lease in Grand Rapids to be here. So
Oh, sorry, Mark W.
he gives us a good fuck Lumen at the end, which is that was fun.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
But
I
yeah,
think
I agree. This theory I think is the most likely, and I think it's going to be really fun to see how it all connects with Gemma and Mark and why they're such an important piece.
yes, definitely. And Devon's reference to Occam's razor earlier in the episode, I do not think it's going to be the simplest, most likely path. I really don't. Um, but another interesting thing, so before we started recording this morning when I was getting ready for the day, I was listening to Ben Stiller and Adam Scott's podcast, which they do on each episode of Severance, much like this, but less theory diving because they can't really do that because they know the plot of the season entirely. Um,
Yeah.
but they do talk about the opening credits and you know, like the artists who made them and their process and all of that. And they mention the baby Kier at the very end of the credits in a very interesting way. I mean, go listen to it if you'd like, but like the way that they talk about it, they kind of brush past it a little bit quickly, but it seems like there really is something to that.
Mm, fascinating. Yeah, I think so. Shout out to Ben Stiller and Adam Scott, friends of the pod. I think they're doing great things with their pod. I hope it takes off.
Yeah, maybe they'll be able to get us on their pod one day if they're
I
lucky.
wish.
Well,
Okay.
what do you think is going to happen next?
Oh, man. Well, we got to get back in, obviously. I think next episode, we are going to go back to the inside outside combo format.
Mhm. Agreed.
I do think Devin and Mark are going to team up on this. And I do think that down the line, this is where Rickon's going to end up having his hero moment. Stick with me, people.
You haven't given up.
Uh, inside, I think it's really interesting because Mark and Lumen are at odds right now of what they need done inside. Mark needs to find out what's going on with Miss Casey and where she is. Lumen needs to get him to finish this Cold Harbor file. And I
Mhm.
don't think he's going to be that interested in working on this file when he's down there. So we'll see how that plays out. What do you think's going to happen next?
Well, I agree that Audi Mark has been given all the signs that he needs to start looking into this immediately, and that there is a chance that his wife is still alive. So I think now that Petey's dead, I think the only person that he's had contact with who would know something more is Ragabi, the former lumen
Hmm.
surgeon. And we don't really like hear about this yet. I mean, we haven't yet. But like Audi Mark seems to be totally unfazed by the fact that he saw someone die. Like he saw Ragabi shoot Grainer and he's just like, whatever. Complicit
That's
where? Like,
true. Yeah,
yeah,
we didn't talk about that again after it happened.
no. But I think he might try and seek her out. We'll see. I don't know if like she kind of ghosted because she shot Grainer. Maybe she's kind of on the run.
Yeah, I could see us not seeing her again, potentially.
Possibly. Possibly. Um, and yeah, on the any side, we left them, they were getting back to work, all four of them at the end of the episode. Um, and so I think we will maybe see some more hallway exploring. I think that could definitely
Mm.
happen, leading to one of your bingo card predictions, which is new department, new teams. I hope we see some more of what's happening on the severed floor.
Yeah, we need to team back up with O&D. What have they been up to, you know?
And I think we will. But
And I think Miss Cobell's gonna find her way back in. Faux
most
show.
definitely. Most definitely. And jury's still out on Helena versus Helly. We are not sure. I'm not
Mhm.
sure. I think I left this episode more confused. I was pretty
Yeah.
certain at the end of episode 1 that it was a red herring, but now I'm like, I don't know anymore.
Yeah, they're not giving us anything one way or another, which I think is good. I love that. I think there are a lot of people on Reddit and elsewhere who are so convinced one way or another, and I
Mhm.
think we just have to take what they're giving us, and enjoy the ambiguity there. So that's where I am.
Agreed. I'm enjoying every minute.
I have one more prediction. I think the Audis are going to find each other. I mean, Bert and Irving are already so close to connecting. I think
Mhm.
they're going to. I think Mark, now that he has some confirmation that there's some funny business happening, he's going to start doing some research and trying to figure out who else he can talk to.
Mhm. I could see that. I hope we see that.
We shall see. Okay, so do we want to look at our bingo boards? I think we can finally start crossing some things out.
Let's do it.
If you haven't done this with us, we are playing Egan Bingo. We have our bingo boards. You can find them on our Instagram stories at Listen After Watching.
Mhm.
And we've basically added a bunch of things to each of our boards. We have different boards that we're playing on of predictions for things that are going to happen in season 2. So, what have you
Yes.
got, Leash?
Well, thankfully, I can cross one off today. Pips. Devin
Oh,
and
yeah.
Mark went to Pips. I knew we would see the return of Pips
that
where
was
Everyone sits, but no one eats.
And there's never anyone in there. That was such a good one for you to put on yours. I love that.
Have you got anything?
I can cross one off, which is Bert appears. Yeah.
Yay.
I'm so close to a couple of other ones. Cobell back at Lumen. I think that's gotta happen. We're gonna see it.
Mhm.
Um, let's see what else. Oh, Mark gets new neighbor. I think we see Miss Cobell basically pack up and head out, or Mrs. Selvig. So I'm waiting for a new neighbor. Is it going to be someone weird? Are we even going to meet that person? I hope we do, so I can cross that one out.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
uh,
I thought I was gonna get it this episode, Mark holding his niece, his baby
I
niece.
know. I realize now that the baby is teeny tiny once we saw it being held by Devin and Rickon. So
Mhm.
I think I also have Mark playing with niece.
Yeah,
I think Mark's Mark's character needs a little bit of help before he can start playing with his niece. I think he's in a dark place.
that's true. I don't trust him yet.
Yeah, we'll see. I think we're gonna start getting some more bingos here in the next couple episodes. More bingos, more things crossed off.
I hope
How does
so.
bingo work?
I get bingo every day.
Oh,
Well, thank you so much for listening after watching. And make sure you tune in
yes.
next week on Monday. We're here every Monday breaking down every episode of Severance season 2, and we're so excited to see what happens in the next one, which is called Who is Alive? Question mark.
Yes, we are excited for episode 3 and to see if any of these theories we've been discussing have any truth to them. We shall
Hmm.
see. So thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.